Hello, welcome to Superheroes in Heels. I'm Kimberly Borgens, your host, and this is the podcast where we fiercely celebrate powerful women rewriting the rules of leadership, right? Life, rewriting the rules of love. I'm your host, Kimberly Borgens, like I said, and today we're diving into a topic that is rarely talked about, especially openly, right? And it impacts so many women stepping into leadership, especially. So, today we're going to be talking about how power and success can change our marriages, our relationships, and nobody warns us about it. So, let me set the stage for today's episode. We celebrate women's advancements, women becoming entrepreneurs, women earning promotions, women leading teams. But what no one tells us is that as we grow in our power as powerful women, right, our dynamic at home can shift in ways that we're often unprepared for. I mean, why do you think nobody warns women about how power and success can change their relationships and, most importantly, their marriages? I mean, think about it. Why aren't people talking about this topic? This is a phenomenal topic. If you would give yourself permission to actually hear what it has to say. My thoughts on this reason that nobody shares about this, nobody warns us about it, is that we're conditioned to believe that success is always good. And it is at some level. But there's a silent expectation that's in our personal lives, right? That seems like it's just going to stay the same. The reality is that stepping into leadership changes how we see ourselves. And as that changes and as that shifts, it also changes how our partners, our family members, our friends, how they see us too. There's excitement about it. I mean, come on, who's not excited when something phenomenal happens when we step into our greatness, right? But there's also a fear and a discomfort from our family and friends. They might be excited for you. You got a promotion. You became the CEO of your business, but they're afraid you might fail or something might shift or it gets uncomfortable and there becomes this unexpected friction that happens, right? She needs help at home to step into that power role at work. But many times there's unspoken expectations at home. And, it kind of messes some things up. There's that unspokenness of like what she will do and what he will do. And, you know, how she's supposed to act here and how he's supposed to act. I mean, in our marriages, we have these unspoken expectations. I used to say, hey, that's not in the marriage agreement. And my husband said, it's in the fine print. Right? Because it was just unspoken. It was not agreed upon verbally out loud. And we just had these expectations. She'll go home, she'll take care of the kids, she'll take care of the dinner, she'll take care of this. He maintains the house, he fills up the gas in the car, he goes and makes the money, all of those things. Those are often, societal expectations, but often unspoken in the marriage. Sometimes it's spoken and sometimes it's spoken with love and sometimes it's not. But the busier that we get as women, as we step into our designed roles, our power roles, our authenticity is, we're going to need some help somewhere. We're going to have to shift some of those dynamics. So I really wanted to talk about that today and talk about the emotional and the practical impacts of becoming the woman who leads, the woman who owns her role authentically, who steps into command presence. All of this is important, and no, you have to make sure that you're doing the other stuff too. And that's why I wanted to talk about this topic today. So, how did my rise to leadership and entrepreneurship affect my marriage? Affect the emotional day-to-day stuff, the relationships with my family? Girl, we could talk for days about that. We can. Look, at first, I was like on a high, right? I was energized, new opportunities, things were going. And then suddenly I noticed our conversations changed. I was making more decisions. I was handling finances. My confidence grew. But my partner felt uncertain in his role. My friends felt uncertain staying connected to me. My family, I was always the black sheep. But the truth was is no matter what relationship I was in, we had unspoken expectations. And that emotional balance that we relied on for all the years that we were friends, that we were spouses, that we were, family members, started to wobble a little bit. Let me share some of those. I was always taking the kids to school in the morning, making their school lunches, picking them up from school, making sure they did their homework, making sure that I fixed the dinner and cleaned up. And my husband, he had to get to work and get his work done. And, he would pop in between kids' school and events, and, he was there. But when I had to step into my leadership role, when I chose to do that, things started to shift. We would argue about just about anything. I don't know about y'all, but I can commit to an argument. Right? But we would argue not because we needed an argument, it was just that we didn't pay attention to the shifting dynamics. Right? Those unspoken agreements started to shift, and he's like, "You're not living up to my expectations." And I'm like, "I didn't even know that was an expectation." So it was like, constantly, right? There was unspoken power plays in place, right? That were happening out in our everyday lives. I mean, he's a Marine and I'm a strong survivor, and we were clashing. Even the D word came up a few times. Come on, you know the D word that, more than 50% of marriages end in. I won't even say it anymore. See, the D word, right? Think about it for a moment. Does any of that resonate with you? Success can shift the dance of a marriage. And it's not just who makes dinner or pays the bills. There's a whole new energy in the relationship. Whoo! And when you have two strong heads, look, I'm not an astronaut. What do you call those? Astrology signs. I'm not into astrology and all of that. That's not part of my belief. But I do know that my husband is the ram and I am the bull, and we both have horns, and we're both not afraid to use them. It is a whole new energy, right? I signed up to handle all the household things. He did not. Now, at the time, I didn't realize I was signing up for all that. I do want to admit. But in order for me to be successful in my business life, in my professional life, in, taking on my value and who I was meant to be authentically, there had to be a shift. And let's be honest, when you make those shifts, there's costs, there's prices that you're paying, right? Think about what are the hidden challenges that women face as they become more powerful in their careers, right? There's discomfort, there's guilt, right? And these are within ourselves, not alone everybody else around there. When our achievements seem to outpace our partners, oh, they feel like they're getting left behind. And the loneliness, it can creep in, especially if your partner feels left behind or your friends don't understand. There was a point, when we were not just business partners, because my husband and I, that's what we are. We're business partners. But there was a part when we became roommates. We were married, but we weren't in a marriage relationship with each other. We weren't feeling much like husband and wife at all. And there are moments when you question, is it all worth it? But the challenge isn't success itself. I want to say that. It's learning to build a new kind of partnership, upgrading the relationships. There's people in your life that have left and they made it sound like it was all your fault. But the truth is that you outgrew the relationship or they weren't willing to grow to stay with you. And that's uncomfortable and that hurts. And there's guilt and there's frustration and sadness. All of those come in. I know people think, Kimberly, you're just this powerful person. I'm still a powerful person, but I'm also a caring, loving human being who wants friends and who doesn't want to lose them along the way. But sometimes it happens. So, how do I help those friends that are really important? How do I help them upgrade? Or, look, I have a beautiful friend. We've been friends since the ninth grade, and I absolutely adore this woman. But she is not a businesswoman. She is not a powerhouse woman. She's a powerhouse in her own household, but she's a homemaker. She'll work a job as necessary to help her husband pay the bills, but that's her space. That's where she was designed to be. And I could have left her behind a long time ago. That's never been my heart. So how do I shift the dynamic when she and I are together in the same room? I just love on her because of who she is, and she can love on me because of who I am. And we don't have to compete or try to one up or, look to go, "Psh, she's not worth my time." She is so worth my time. But you have to decide those relationships. Say, oh, you're Lawrence's wife. And then there was a shift to where he would hear, oh, you're Kimberly's husband. And I think the first time that happened, it really threw him off. Okay. Really threw him off. We had a whole conversation about it where he asked, when did that happen? And I get it too. Like, our story is not your story. Okay. We started a business and then we got married. It was the idea to start the business to begin with. It was his passion for being an entrepreneur that got us started. We were sole proprietors for this first 6 years. And I know your story is different than mine, but I hope that you can take some of the things that I'm talking about today and apply it to your story to see where this fits in for you. Right? We decided to incorporate our business and make it a woman owned business, right? Because at the time we were going after some, maybe state and federal contracts. And, you get better designation when you have a woman designated corporation. And so we did all of those things. And at the time, it didn't seem to matter who was responsible for what, because for me in business as a partner, whatever needed to happen, whatever needed to get done, we both just stepped in and got it done. Right. And then something shifted. When I look back, I can say that that shift happened when we became a corporation that was woman owned and I became the CEO. When we went from being sole proprietors to being the CEO of a corporation. And I never had this conversation with my husband. I never asked him, but I think he thought it would have been the same way. But for me, I had to elevate to a whole new level. People always said I was working in my husband's business before. It wasn't the case. We both brought our talent to the business, right? But he was the front man. He was the face of the business. I was the woman who was behind, overlooked, managed business, managed kids, managed household, had so much on my plate. I really didn't care what other people thought. I still don't care, but I was just working to get everything done. Do I have some women who are listening that can relate to this? Look, Society celebrates successful women, but rarely talks about the hidden relational cost. Friends and family may cheer, but behind closed doors, women face unexpected challenges. There's the discomfort of, right, out learning a spouse or even out earning your spouse. Come on. Men do not want to make less money than women. It's not that they feel women shouldn't make more money. It's just men don't want to feel inferior to women. They want to be alongside women. I think that's where the feminist movement gets in the way is we want to knock all the men down as strong feminists, but the reality is we need those men and we want them walking right alongside us. We just want the equal pay. We want the equal right to vote. We want the equal right to say where and how we take a loan and if we can own a house or whatever. That I feel like the feminist movement was really about those things, but what happened is we started making it I'm going to outdo him so he looks less than. And I don't buy into that. I'm grateful for my husband and his power and his strength. But the truth is if I out earn him, which I do, we joke about it in the business. As the CEO, I make more money than him as the vice president of the corporation. But doesn't mean he can out earn me in every aspect. He can go out. He said, go ahead, you make more money. That just challenges me to go make more money. Right? I mean, that's the kind of competition that I want. But many men feel discomfort in that friction, that shifting dynamics in the household, right? And then the loneliness of feeling misunderstood because that's not what we wanted. We didn't want to make them feel bad or look bad or feel less than or interpret that in any way whatsoever. But it happens in marriages because we're not willing to talk about it. We're not willing to say this. Our spouses will say, yeah, go ahead, you go make more money. And then things start to shift and divorces happen and, abuse happens and all these other things happen because of insecurities that men have. Women often internalize the struggles, right? We question whether our ambition is the problem, right? We're questioning whether or not this should be our reality. Should we do this? Should we make more money? Oh, no. I got to cap myself. I know somebody who their boss was going to give them a raise, going to put them into a new tax bracket. And they declined the raise because they would lose the pricing of their housing. I'm like, what? It's the insecurities that show up, right? But you have to remember the reality is growth brings discomfort. It absolutely will bring it for everyone involved, your household, your kids, your husband, your friends, your family members. It's going to change things as you elevate who you are. They have to elevate too, or they don't, and you have to be okay with it. And they have to be okay with it too. Navigating the challenges requires open communication. It requires empathy. It requires the willingness to rewrite the rules together. Like we all have this belief that the rules are one way in relationship, but I'm telling you, they are not. You can adjust the rules to fit so many things. If you're listening and you're wondering if, this is what's happening in your relationship, or you're like, oh my gosh, you've hit the nail on the head, Kimberly. Like the dynamics shift, really. So how can you pay attention to it? What are some signs to noticing that the dynamics might have shifted? So I wanted to share some of those with you. And then I want to share with you some solutions on this, right? So how do you know if the dynamics have shifted like this? Is there's a sense of conversation that revolves around logistics, not dreams or connections anymore. It's like, okay, we need to get this done and we need to get this done. And here's the things that, have to happen and, da, 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 right? But we're not having real heartfelt connections or, discussing the dreams, the future is because they don't know where they fit in. Maybe you have a partner that's feeling left out of big decisions, or they're leaving you out of big decisions. There's a growing sense of resentfulness, a feeling like you're being run over or that they feel like they're being run over. If you're hearing that kinds of language from your partner, that's a sign. That's a cue, right? How about an increase in arguments about the little small things, right? Those small things matter. It might seem small to you, but remember, a whole bunch of small things add up to something big. Feeling exhausted or trying to do it all at home, at work, in all the relationships. And maybe there's moments that neither partner feels heard or valued, or you feel like you have a roommate, like I did. I remember times when I did something great and I came home and I was so ready to celebrate, but my husband seemed distant. And later he admitted that he felt like he was losing his place in my life. And that kind of hit hard, right? It took me, being open and him being open and sometimes painful conversations for us to see that it wasn't about competition for us or keeping score. Come on, ladies, we're good at that. We keep score. Okay. But really redefining our partnership. And I got to tell you this conversation that we had one time. It just, we still laugh about it now, right? But he told me one day, he said, "Look, I need you to need me." And my quick response was, "I don't need you. Look, I've been married and divorced from my high school sweetheart who, after 2 years, just abandoned myself and our son. I became a single mom. I was living in my car, got on welfare. Like it wasn't fun. I didn't need anybody anymore. Right. So when he said to me, "Look, I need you to need me," my quick response was, "Psh, I don't need you." To which he said, "I know, but that's what I need." And I really had to hear what he was saying. He needed to feel needed in my life. Like I needed him to be there versus just arm candy or just a smart person who's going to do this for me or he just needed to be needed by me. And so to this day I'll go, "Babe, I need you." I need you to do this. Like I say it, but and it's a internal joke between us, but I do need him. I had to adjust me so that my husband could feel like he still had a place to be my protector, to be my guide, to be my friend as well as being my lover. Like it he needed to know beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was needed for those spaces in my life. My strong power woman instinct was, "Psh, I don't need anybody. I've been through that." Right? But the truth is we do need people. Right? We are people who were designed by God to be with other people. And we need each other and we just have to be real about that with our spouse. There's another time when I was traveling a lot for work and I missed a family event and that guilt weighed heavily on me. Right? And I realized that in that moment I had to decide to let go of being the perfect wife and the perfect mom. Look, my kids would be different kids if we had the internet and we had social media the way that we do now. I would be a different parent, and maybe a better parent. Maybe I would have, learned some things that, my kids went through with as me as their mom, right? But that wasn't the case. That wasn't the reality for me. And I know that I did the best that I could as a parent. I love my kids. I love them to death. At the same time, they're all adults now and I have to let them go and let them have their space. But at the time, I had to let go of being the perfect wife, being the perfect mom. And the idea of embracing the present when I could instead of trying to be everything for everyone. I missed the mark. and I would let people down because of it. But we did do something right. We did so much right. We have 4 amazing kids who are compassionate and caring and loving and that will help anybody. My kids pull over along the side of the road and help somebody with a flat tire. They'll, including my daughter, right? Like they're compassionate people in the world, and so I'm blessed for that. But one of the things that we did early on is we had family night. Every Tuesday, I worked very hard not to miss my Tuesday nights with my family. If I was going to work any other night, it was going to be those nights. But I would tell people, nope, can't do it. Tuesday night, I have a standing appointment. Right. And we would set that up as our guide to make the family a priority. And that's one of the dynamics that had to shift in our relationship, is so that we were both there with all the kids. Heck, we would go, look, we made it simple. Can I just say we were poor people? All right. That's why we worked so hard, is because we didn't have a whole lot. And so we would go out to dinner. Around here, we had Tony Roma's. It's the ribs place, right? And Tuesday night, kids eat free. Well, when you have 4 kids, one of them was older, so we would buy 3 meals and we would get 3 for free, right? So we would sit there and we would ask for the same table, and it was a round table so we could see each other's faces and we can talk to each other. We would take cards, we would take board games, we would take dice, whatever, and we would play games at the table while we're waiting, and we would have conversations. And then when they got older, some of them, like, they had cell phones and we're like, okay, put the cell phone in the middle, like we're not touching it. And then it was like, but mom, I need my phone. Great. So the only thing that you can do on that phone while we're sitting at dinner on our Tuesday night dinner is you have to come up with random facts and teach us all about it. All right. So we found ways to navigate those relationships and build those relationships. My kids are filled with useless knowledge, just like their mama. But they're also filled with some amazing knowledge too, and it's gotten them to where they are in this life. So think about, for you, how do you begin to navigate the changes and realign your relationships? The ones with your friends, the ones with your family members, the one with your spouse. I know for us, we had to create new relationship rules. We scheduled regular check-ins, just us, nobody else, no phones, no distractions. I had to learn to share my fears and my victories, not just the polished versions, right? And my husband started to open up about his insecurities too. It wasn't always easy, but communication and empathy make all the difference. We realized that we were both growing, and that was something for us to celebrate together. We were no longer the 25-year-old kids that got together, started a business, got married, had a ton of kids. At least that's what everybody else tells us, right? Oh, you got kids forever. Like, you got a million kids. I'm like, I was only 4, but yeah, it felt like a million some days. There were some events, that we would go to now that my husband, he'll say, oh, people say, oh, you're Kimberly's wife. And there's some events that we go to, and, oh, you're Lawrence's wife, you're Kimberly's husband. It would just play back and forth. And we learn to divide and conquer. And we both are great at being called each other's spouse. We like it. I can't tell you how many times I'm not even at an event and I get a text, a phone call from somebody who said, oh, your husband and I were talking and he thinks you would be really good for this. I mean, it just happened last week for a women's panel. They're like, hey, we want you on a women's panel. We talked to your husband, and he was out of state at a conference for software. Look, not many husbands and wives work together building business. I get it. Okay. But think of all the things that husband and wives do together. Think about, even if you work separately, this still shows up, not necessarily in your face the way that it was in our situation, but you do need to pay attention. When those things are happening in your relationship, you have to have the conversation. Those unspoken agreements can get in the way. You have to speak them out and go, whoa, that wasn't even really what we meant. So, what advice might I give women who find themselves in this space? The space of being powerful and successful, but facing unexpected challenges at home. I mean, come on, what kind of feedback could I give? Well, the first thing that I would say is to remember you're not broken. You never were. And neither is your relationship. Growth is messy. Okay. It can suck sometimes, and that is okay. Communication can be challenging. Men want to get to the point, and us women, we want to talk it through with him listening so it makes sense to us. But don't wait for those power shifts that cause those rifts, that silently cause those rifts in your relationship. Have the conversations now. Start noticing. And just remember, it's not broken. It just needs to be upgraded. Come on, our computers, our phones, they get upgraded all the time. Why would you think we shouldn't? How about prioritize, right? Create honest, judgment free conversations. Ask your partner how they feel and really listen, even when it's hard. I remember, I still see it sometimes because I watch Kira Sedgwick and Kevin Bacon. Like, they are hilarious on Instagram. And I remember a few years back, they did this segment called We Listen and We Do Not Judge. They would sing it, we listen and we do not judge. So anyway, they would sing it, and they would ask each other questions. And I remember one was, she was saying, those white t-shirts that you keep buying, like, I throw them away. I donate them. He's like, I'm wondering where they go. And she goes, no judgment. Right? But we listen and we do not judge. You can check them out on Instagram. They're funny, but you get the idea. Is we have to be able to be in the space in our relationships where we can say something honestly and remind each other not to judge each other. But you have to be in those conversations, and you have to prioritize honest, judgment-free conversations on a regular basis. My husband will say to me sometimes, he'll go, wait, hold on. When you say that, does it mean, and then he'll break it down in his mindset. And I'm like, yes, or yes, but, and then like, he's like, oh my gosh, I never realized that's what that really meant for you. It didn't mean the same thing. Right. So having those conversations and being willing to have those honest miscommunication conversations can make a big shift. And the other thing, you have to be willing to rewrite the relationship rules. Look, I'm a rule follower. Okay. My husband will tell you, I want to follow the law. I want to follow the rules. These are the rules. But the reality is, in business and in life and in marriage, is not all the rules fit for you. You're different than everybody else. Your spouse is different than everybody else's spouse, right? So you have to be willing to rewrite those relationship rules, even with your friends. What worked before doesn't fit your new reality of what's happening today. Look, I've said it before in many podcast episodes, I'm a pre-Google girl, right? The internet was not something we played with every single day. So we have a whole new reality now, and we had to adjust in business, in our marriage, in our relationships with our family and friends, with our kids, based on technology and life and all of these things. Right? So what worked before is not going to fit the new reality, and that's not failure. It's just different. My husband started taking kids to school, and then I would pick them up, and he'd help with shopping, and he'd help with the kids. Right? Now he helps with the dishes, and he tries to help me with cooking. Okay, that's kind of funny to watch, right? But it's an evolution, not a failure when things need to shift. You have to celebrate your wins. Invite your partner, invite your family, invite your friends to celebrate with you. But make sure you're celebrating their wins too. Listen to what they hear, what they want to celebrate, what their needs are. Listen to what they need you to listen to. Don't just make it about you. And look, you can find support getting mentors, coaches, communities who understand your journey. Come join me over in the Hive Hangout. Right? You don't have to walk this path by yourself. You need some support? Let us know. But I also want to say to be a powerful woman, power doesn't have to divide. It can bring about new possibilities, right? For connection. It can bring about new possibilities for love. It can bring about new possibilities for your dream, your authenticity to come out if we're willing to embrace it openly. We have to embrace it. So, I want to go back to something that I said earlier. I said earlier in the conversation that I changed when I became the CEO. At that time, we were about 30 employees. We hadn't yet made our $1 million year, our first $1 million year. We were still surviving in business. But somewhere in there, I made an internal shift. We never talked about it. It wasn't really conscious to me. I didn't even realize that it happened right away, right? It took a long time before I noticed when it happened. But I had decided that if I was the CEO of this corporation, then I better take full responsibility for how my business does, for how my relationships matter. No more just doing what needed to be done. I had to step up. I had to create vision, right? Make changes that moved us towards finding ways to thrive in business, not just survive. Part of that meant that I personally had to stop surviving myself, surviving in life, and stepping deeper into the thriving personality. I had to let go of my past stories from my youth, past experiences, trauma from my childhood, and the missteps in our marriage. I mean, seriously, what authority does a rape and sexual assault survivor, have to being a successful business CEO? Look, I had to let go of abusive parents' words that said I wouldn't amount to anything. I changed right before my husband's eyes, and I didn't even ask his permission. I mean, seriously, the man didn't even see it coming. But I had to embrace the changes that success meant, right? Success meant to be shared, even when it's challenging. You have the power to build a partnership that grows with you in your relationship with your spouse, in your relationship with your friends. You can create that partnership and it can grow with you. So don't be afraid to ask for what you need, what you want, and what you hope for. Leadership starts at home. It starts with courage and love and the willingness to evolve, right? Give it to God and let Him guide you through the tough stuff. Be committed in your relationship and step into communication at a whole different level, ladies. It can also help incorporate some strategies in your routine, right? Get some strategies in there, some systems that make it easier for your personal life. It can enhance focus and resilience, both personally and professionally. And consider, implementing some practices like, schedule reflection. Set aside some dedicated time each day for mindful reflection, allowing yourself to process the challenges and the successes that you had. One that's helped me over the last several years is some breath work exercises, right? Utilizing deep breaths. I'll say that sometimes on my podcast is take a deep breath because that was hard. That was heavy. These techniques help right before important meetings or difficult conversations. It helps to reduce stress. It helps to improve clarity. Take a deep breath in through your nose. Hold it for 3 seconds and then just slowly release it. It helps you. Right before you're ready to holler at your husband. There's also like some transitions. You can create some rituals for yourself, like between work at home. Like for me, one of the things when I get home from work, I sit in my car for 5 to 10 minutes, right? I just sit in my car and I just allow myself to just like go, okay, is there anything else I need to leave in my car or at work before I walk into my house? Before I walk in and become the wife and the mother, I can put the CEO suit on when I get back in the car the next day. But that's a ritual for me. I'll sit in my car when I get home 5 to 10 minutes. I think my neighbors think I'm crazy, but but I just sit there and I just think about it. I look at my phone, check to see if there's anything else I need to like handle before I get in, and then take some deep breaths, especially if I know that something tough is happening in my family, and just take a moment to be with me for a minute. And then I go and I walk into my household and I'm ready. Practice doing single tasking during critical business activities. This is huge. I want to say it because women, we pride ourselves in being multitaskers. Okay. But sometimes we need to just like go, I need a single focus task for a moment with our family, right? If we want to foster real genuine engagement with somebody, we need to stay looking at that person in the eyes and we need to really be in single task mode, right? It helps to reduce overwhelm. It helps to feel connection. It helps to feel genuineness. So practice some single tasking during, critical business activities and when you're out connecting with people. And then gratitude. Some people are great at journaling, some people are not, but regularly record moments of appreciation, both personally, both professionally. What are some of those milestones? Supporting a positive mindset. Look, I have encouragement files, right? I hand those out sometimes when I'm speaking as these encouragement files, and you put in anything that was positive. You get a thank you note. Somebody sends you an email that just makes you feel really good. They make a comment about one of your videos on social media. You can print that out, put it in your encouragement file. And whenever you're having a tough day, whenever you need to be reminded of the strong, capable woman that you are, just pull out that encouragement file and remind yourself and give yourself the encouragement that other people have brought to you along the way. And the last thing I would say is just establish some clear boundaries at work and at home, because that is essential for maintaining a healthy well-being and aligning your actions with your core values. Acknowledging when you need support, right? Acknowledging when you're stepping into new levels of leadership maturity, prioritizing your self-care, creating sustainable productivity and positive engagement with your colleagues and your loved ones. This episode really is kind of twofold. Life shifts, we shift, our relationships shift. And when we make those shifts for the right reasons, some people think it's still wrong. And we have to step into our amazing selves to be the leaders that we know that we were designed to be. And some people, they're not willing to go on the journey with us. And that's not failure. That's progress. It's evolution. And it might make us cry. You might feel hurt. You might want to just pull ourselves back from our destinies. But I'm going to tell you, don't do that. See if you can help bring those you love along with you. And some, they're going to leave you. They're going to walk away. They weren't meant to be in your life for a long time, but you have the memories. You might have the pictures in those 40,000 pictures on your phone, right? But you're destined to make shifts. And as powerful women, we have to remember that those shifts create ripple effects. And in our marriages, it's important that we have the conversations and the discussions with our spouses and our friends and our family to make sure that we're still working through all the shifts together. If you felt this was a powerful episode, please share it. You can find my podcast on my website and share the link for a friend to listen. If you know a woman who is struggling with this right now. KimberlyBorgens.com. That's all you need to go to. Go to my podcast on that page and find this podcast. Especially if you feel that you're leaving somebody behind or they say that you are, this would be a great way to say to them, how can we do this together? If you found yourself questioning your marriage because of your success, no, this isn't your fault and you're not broken. It's just time to have some new conversations. How valuable could that be? So tune in next time for more honest conversations about women, leadership, and relationships. Subscribe to Superheroes in Heels, comment. Let's see how we can, share some things that others aren't talking about for women in business and keep lifting up the women around us. Be blessed and just know that you are so meant to be a strong, powerful, capable woman. And I want you to step into those roles on a regular basis. Have a great day.